We are told the kingdom of God is not coming with signs to be observed, nor will they say, "Lo, here it is," or "there," for the kingdom of God is within you. Can we take this literally? I look out of a sea of faces. I see the room, and everything I see seems so completely independent of my perception of it. Is it really within me? When Blake said, "All that you behold, though it appears without, it is within, in your own imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow." Is that true? Everything in this vast, enormous world, is the human imagination the only thing vast enough to contain the immensity of space? Then is the human imagination one with the presence we call God? I identify God with human imagination, and in doing so I close the gap between God and man. Now, if all things are possible to God, I should be able to test this theory. If God truly is my imagination, and all things are possible to Him, I should be able to test it. And we are called upon to test it. To test yourself and see. Do you not realize that Jesus Christ is in thee? Unless, of course, you fail to meet the test. But how to make the test? How should I go about making the test? Well, first of all, I'm going to ask of you what I ask of everyone that I address. Paul said in his letter to the Galatians, "Let him who is taught share all good things with him who teaches." Now, Paul was not asking for any earthly good. He was asking the results of their experiments, that he in turn could take their stories and tell it to others to encourage their faith. So I'm going to ask you to test it, and then share with me the results of your testing. Not only that, your dreams, your visions. I would like to hear them. For that's how God reveals himself to himself in man. We are told, if there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and I will speak with him in a dream. Now, this is what a friend of mine did here recently. This man, I must tell you, is a very successful, I wouldn't say a businessman, he's a writer. But he's always busy, writing for pictures, writing for TV, and his income is enormous. He never misses a meeting in LA. And here recently he sent me this letter. He said, "You've asked me to share with you any experience of mine, such as a vision, a dream, or my practical down-to-earth experiences in the application of this principle." Well, here is a dream. He said, first of all, I must preface the dream. Then he asked me in his letter if I was familiar with Berkeley's 12, where the central character tries to convince the girl that he can move from one century to another, say the 20th century to the 18th century. And then he likens it to someone on a river, and his destination is around the bend. His present is where he is on the boat. His future is around the bend. But someone elevated above the earth, having a view of both sides of the river, would see the man's future and his present as present. Where that man is going and where he is will be present to the one elevated. For he said, my dream began in this manner. I was the observer from above. I looked down and I saw infinite possibilities for man. You couldn't conceive of a plot, whether it be a plot of a tragedy or some glorious plot, some horrible thing or some marvelous thing, but every conceivable plot that man could ever conceive, everyone was present. Worked out in the most minute detail. And strangely enough, they were all contained in a prone man. Here is the form of a prone man. And we said, don't ask me how. Infinite states of consciousness, infinite possibilities could be limited by the form of a man. But there it was. I'm only telling you what I experienced. Till I contemplated this, it was the deadest thing I had ever seen. And yet I shouldn't use the word dead, because something that is dead suggests it must have lived. There's a previous life to it, if it's now dead. So it's simply an inanimate thing. I looked at it, and then I began to awake on Sunset Boulevard, opposite Ralph's supermarket. People were on the sidewalks, there were cars on the street, but everything was frozen. Everything was frozen. Three-dimensional, but frozen. And I knew that I alone could animate them. As I knew that, I myself was frozen. I looked at myself, I'm just like the others, all frozen. And I knew only as I became alive would they become alive. And so I took a step. And I seemed to pass through an invisible curtain. At that very moment of taking the step, everyone became alive and began to move, the sound, the noise, the action, everything. And I knew there was something I was trying to remember. What is it I am trying to remember? I kept on walking. I must have gone a block. It seemed like a normal walk, the kind of walk I take every day. And everything is alive and independent of me. And then I remembered. As I remembered, I turned around and looked and changed the focus of my attention and placed it back above. And everything once more became frozen and lifeless. From this exalted state, I remembered I didn't talk to them. And for some strange reason, I wanted to speak with people. And at that moment, I found myself in the living room where a party was in progress, but they were frozen. And as I entered, I was frozen. And I wondered, am I the host? Am I the guest? They all seem to know me, and I don't know one of them. And for a moment I panicked, for I knew the party would come to an end, and I didn't know where to go. So I remembered. I completely forgot 1 second before, as I became involved in the party. Then I'm trying to remember something. I remembered the Sunset Boulevard experience. Remembering that and how I escaped from it, I walked over to a seat, a chair. I sat down and closed my eyes. And then I changed the focus of my attention. Once more placed it not here with the party, but above. I opened my eyes, and they're all frozen. Everyone is frozen. And then I felt myself once more above. At this exalted state, I looked way down, and here is myself on a bed. And I had what I considered a wonderful idea. Now I know I can move myself from its present state into the most desirable state that I would like to experience. And then I realized how impossible that would be. From this level, I can't change any state. These states are permanent. I would have to go down and identify myself with that dream. And from that level, once more, play the game. And so, at that moment, I began to awake. I'm on my bed, and I have no knowledge of the dream. To me, it's 6:30 in the morning, and I can't conceive that I had a dream. I went to my library and started to make a recording of your last lecture. And something you said triggered the dream. And it all came back in detail, as I've just told you. Then I said, did I dream it last night? Or did I dream it long, long, long ago? I don't know. But, however, it thrilled me, and so I thought I'd share it with you. Then at the very end, to make it a light matter, he said, I went to my doctor, and he said, in fact, he congratulated me on my rapid physical recovery. And he asked me if I'd done something, and if so, tell him all about it. So I said I did it all in my imagination. I imagined I was in your office, and you were saying to me exactly what you said. And then I began to explain to him how imagination works. That imagination creates reality. He said to me in an elderly philosophical manner, you know, my wife thinks things like that. Wasn't very flattering. But he said, this is a strange experience. We're out driving recently on a Sunday afternoon, and the radio was turned in to a ball game. And this man is coming to bat, and I dislike him. And I said to my wife, he shouldn't be in the big league. He can't hit, he can't catch, and he can't run. What right has he playing in the big league? And she said to me, you shouldn't think things like that. You should think nice things about him and see him doing wonderful things. He said, all right, I will. I'll see him hit a home run. He steps to the plate, and the first ball pitched, he belts it into the bleachers. And then said he to his wife, I'll never do that again. It's too fast. But I must tell you, the lecture that triggered the memory of his dream. For here we all are seated in this room, and we think we are here and completely this. And what his dream signifies, we will not take to heart. And yet you're the animating power of the universe. The whole vast world is moving around you because you're identified with the present state. Well, the thing he began to recall was this. I found myself in dream, but not knowing that it was a dream. I found myself on a crowded subway train in
Hey everybody, how's it going? Yeah, I cut off that part of the lecture because it goes on for another 15 minutes, and I'll continue that part of it later at the end of the stream if you want to hear the rest of that one. That, I don't know if this is the proper title of the lecture. Pretty sure it's not. But if you want to listen to that in its entirety, just go to YouTube and search Go Within. Your imagination is reality. This is the dream. I can copy paste the link if someone has trouble finding it that way. I mean, you're going to have to type out the link if you're watching this back, but it's better than not having the link available. Let me make it a little bigger. I'm pretty sure I've done that one on stream before, because that's one of the writers who was most likely, if not Rod Serling himself, one of his staff members. Though there were quite a few writers who attended Neville's lectures once he was doing them, mostly in Los Angeles. I'm just trying to make the chat a good size. Um, and I'm pretty sure that's the same writer who wrote in a couple times to tell Neville that he had a lot of success with his producer boss. Specifically, what he would do is for any time that he was going to write a script for the show, part of his work doing it was to really not care about the script, but to imagine his boss really liking it, and it always paid off. He also successfully imagined for a raise when his mom visited him on set and basically told him he was underpaid, and so he manifested getting a raise from that same boss. And one of his more interesting manifestations was that one time he turned in a script for the producer, and the producer said he didn't like it. He wanted him to rewrite it. He didn't rewrite it. All he did was imagine the producer saying it's great. Waited a little bit, sent him the new script, the exact same script he had given him, and the producer said, "Yeah, it's great. I love it. I love what you did." I think that is fantastic. Try that at work. That's a good little tip for you right there. So today, let me move over the thoughts too. The thoughts were a little bit too long. Today I'm going to do the lecture of the Coin of Heaven. I might have done it before, but I don't see it on the list of prior streams. I mean, that's fine, because at this point I'm going to start repeating a lot of stuff. Like, even when the lecture has a different title and it has a little bit different arrangement of transition of thoughts, Neville was basically saying the same thing over and over all the time anyway, which is kind of why I got a little bit burned out last week, because even though I think we had a great chat when Manifest 1922 was on, I've done most of the good introductory lectures that I want to do at this point. And so I was kind of at a point where it's like, okay, well, do I want to start moving into the more dream and vision focused ones at this point where, new people are going to start trickling into the stream and stuff like that? I just kind of had, and then just in general, my sleep schedule, and I had migraines last week, so that's why I kind of skipped streams last week. But we're back at it, and I do want to do I wanted to do today a Walter Lanyon, a little bit of one of his books, but I just didn't have enough time to, pre-read and find which particular one I wanted to do just yet. So maybe next time, but maybe it won't be till next week, that I'll do some Walter Lanyon, because basically a lot of my non-stream but related to the stream time has been going to chopping up the prior streams and making them into highlights and pushing them to YouTube. And I just have a lot of stuff to do for that, because it takes like 2 to 3 hours to get the highlights out, and then a lot of time, more time than I expected per video, to tag it up and get the thumbnail done and write up the description and make sure all the links are there and everything. But yeah, so that's just my explanation for why I haven't done streams this past week. So what was the other thing I did? Because I had like 2 little quick points before I wanted to tell of a manifestation I'd had. I don't know, they'll come to me again later. So the manifestation I wanted to, one of them just came up in the little excerpt we just heard. So when that doctor said that was too fast, I'll never do it again. So it made me realize, like, when you're new to manifesting, this is something that Manifest 1922 and I had both, we had this shared experience, is like when you're new to conscious manifesting, you don't have a bunch of assumptions built up yet about how long something's going to take or how skilled you are at manifesting or something like that. And so a lot of things just start popping fairly quickly for you. And then you sort of build up a self concept about how long things should or shouldn't take. Like this thing might take longer and this thing might take less time. And that starts to affect the unfolding. And then sometimes even affects the whether or not the manifestation is ever going to happen for you. But like when you approach it with this newness, with this like let me try this out type of sensibility, you really surprise yourself how quickly things can happen. And that's the attitude I've encouraged with, especially when it comes to revision, because I just know that I have approached revision with a limiting mindset, where it's basically limited how much older, like deeper past revisions have affected my present, as opposed to if I'm revising something that happened today or last week, it seems to have a much more pronounced and noticeable effect. I've even had people tell me what I imagined as the revision, like go out of their way to tell me that. And so, but really my point there is like when you're newer to conscious manifesting, or if you're not new to conscious manifesting, you've been doing it for a while, think back to that kind of, it's almost like a challenging God type of mindset is kind of the way Manifest 1922 had expressed it. But it's like a naive, nearly innocent approach mindset that one has to it, where it's like a, let's just see how this works, like an experimental type of feeling that you apply to it. And that seems to produce very fast results, as this guy had noticed. And also, let me give a shout out to Complicated right here. Campbell does the music for the stream. He's also been doing a lot of, past 2 weeks, he's been making some rockets in Kerbal Space Program. And then also the other two guys in his band, the bassist Atonal Assassin plays retro games on Sunday, and his drummer Jarrett plays it's one of the driving games. He does a driving game every Monday morning, early Monday morning, but of course every Saturday at 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern, they play live as a trio, and they're really awesome. You can go ahead and listen to their most recent music stream today while you're listening to this. Okay. Oh, so the other little mini point I wanted to make before I tell about this manifestation I'd had was that you really should pay attention to your dreams. I know it's kind of it's kind of a modern, a contemporary maxim to say dreams don't mean anything, and this is a larger cultural belief that we have, and I believe it has bled over into manifesting spaces as a way to say, oh well, you decide what the dream means, or you can revise the dream or whatever. I gotta say, I really agree with and believe Neville that dreams are direct communications from God. That, I mean, everything is, and everything is God, but in your dreams, you're closer to your true God self. The way that things are very serpentine and shift so quickly that you can be 50 different characters in the space of one dream, that you can be in all these different environments, sometimes at once, that you have all these crazy nonsensical things going on. To my mind, to what I've experienced and had revealed to me so far, that's closer to our true self than the static nature of our day-to-day reality. Like the seeming permanence of this world, though that's only seeming, is much less natural. It's much more unnatural and fabricated as a way for us to learn. And in our true self, it's very shapeshifter. It's very fast. It's very rapid. There's very few rules applied to it. And I think the reason why this reality is more static is so that, we don't end up in a nightmare that we have a hard time pulling out of. Though of course some people do have the feeling like their life is a nightmare and they're going to have a hard time pulling out of it already as it is. But if things were like that responsive and they had that little restrictions on them as they do in dreams, I think you would just, your ability to attain mastery would be very compromised. But my original point there was pay attention to your dreams. Take them to heart. There are messages coming to you in your dreams all the time. Sometimes they may elude the ability of your conscious mind to interpret them and understand them. But other times they're really direct. They're really straightforward. My most direct recent message, and I was shown how it works, is that everything here is bones and dust. And I saw how this reality animates and how it operates. And it is actually just like dream, but we tend to hold things in place longer here, just so that we can have a better understanding of how to, deselect something and select something new instead. Now, kind of related to all of this is that I had a manifestation last week that happened the same day, and I'll go through like all of how I did it, and I don't want to say too much of what it was because I don't want to like disclose the person I did it for or anything like that. But basically, there's a game stream I watch, and it's a variety streamer. He plays a lot of different games, but one game he plays is a game that he got me into that he really enjoys playing, really loves this game. It's his favorite game, and plays it even though his viewers tend not to like it. Well, he just has less viewership. Like, it's kind of like the people who really like that game, but not all of his viewer base likes that game, so he has a few less viewers when he plays that game. But he plays it anyway because he likes it so much. And so I started playing that game. I joined their little guild in the game. And that particular game, every now and then they'll enable this thing on Twitch called drops, where if you're watching a stream while they have the drops on, you can get in-game items. And it's kind of a big deal to have drops on your stream because for this game especially, you have to like apply to the game company to be part of their stream team and have drops on your channel and all this stuff. And so he didn't have the drops enabled. It's been a thing where, because I'm in like his guild, I let them know when drops are on so that the people in the guild can get it and stuff like that. But they weren't enabled on his stream, and other people in the chat had mentioned before wanting that. And it's kind of complicated, like why I manifested it, because it's like I did it for everybody. Like I did it for him because I knew it would make him happy. I did it for me because it would make me happy, like to see it manifest. But then beyond that, it's like to see someone's channel grow in that way was very appealing to me, and to like be part of their guild when that's something that's happening and he's growing in that space was exciting. And then also to have the other people on the channel be able to get their drops where they're watching him, because a lot of us were just having tabs on in the background and and not getting to like watch a streamer we enjoy and get the drops type of deal. So there was a lot of people that were involved that I wanted to make happier through this manifestation. And essentially what I did was, first off, I thought the main reason this got inspired in me, because it's something I thought of before, but the main reason I was like, well, let me do it just now, is I was watching back one of his other streams where he's playing this game, and a joke came to me about drops, because sometimes he calls the people in the chat flops, so drops for flops was the joke that came to my mind. And I basically I did imagine when the drops first got turned on. I also imagined seeing a post about it in our little guild chat, and I went to the drops page. Like there's a official page on the game website where you can apply to be part of the stream team and get the drops turned on. Now, when I was looking at this page, for the reason of, because my mind started thinking about, well, what could the possible unfolding be? So I pulled up this page and I was like, I wonder if he's ever applied to this. Maybe I should post it in the guild in case he hasn't applied and just kind of encourage him. And I stopped myself and I said, no, look, whatever unfolding needs to take place does not need to involve me making any movement or, prodding him to apply for this or anything like that. I should just assume he's already applied, and if he hasn't applied, that other people will, whoever needs to move to get him on the stream team and get the drops will be moved. And what I did, and this was just, at this point, it just kind of was a flow of thoughts. I mentally composed an email to the game company telling them why he should be on their stream team. And it was totally genuine because I felt that, he's actually entertaining. He would be a big value add for their affiliate streamers. To have this person, having their drops on and all that. And it was a genuine, and this is all mental. I never wrote this email. I never sent this to anybody, but I mentally wrote this email to the games company saying how great he was and that he should have the drops, and saying that I bought the game and like a very pretty expensive version of the game because of his enthusiasm for the game. So just like literally a testimonial, a bigging up of this guy to this company on his behalf, but entirely in my mind. This email is not written. It has not been sent to anybody. I wrote it only in my mind. And then I also imagined again the jokes, people making jokes about having the drops now. I went to sleep not long after this. I didn't fall asleep in it, but about 20 to 30 minutes later, because I was a little tired after having a migraine, I fell asleep. I woke up to the manifestation. What's interesting about that is that part of my thought process, as I was just really enjoying thinking about this manifestation, was this might take some time. Like, this might take 4 to 6 weeks for them to like approve him for this stream and then add him and all this other crap. But that was a very subtle and fast thought. It wasn't really a hard assumption. But it was a thought that was included in that stream of thoughts. Now, however, one thing I've noticed before is if you really yield to the feeling of the manifestation, to that final scene while you're imagining it, and leave out the sense of time, those assumptions get like automatically canceled out. It doesn't matter. As long as you make then, now, and here, or there, here, as long as you bring it into the present in the moment of the imaginal act, all those other assumptions really don't matter. It gets overpowered by the imaginal act. And that's what I believe happened, because I woke up to the manifestation. And the way it manifested was, when I woke up, I had an alert on my phone in our guild Discord. It was the first thing I saw. Someone screenshotted the live stream saying that the drops were on. And his live stream had already ended, so I went and watched the VOD, and it's the first thing that people are talking about in the stream, and he didn't believe them. At first, he was like, okay, I mean, I guess y'all can get drops for another channel while you're watching me, whatever. But people kept saying, no, like your stream has the drops on. He didn't believe them. He realized they were telling the truth and was just like super surprised for it. The joke was made. Drops for Flops joke was made, which was great. And then the next day, he had drops on again, and he confessed that he never applied for the stream team. He never applied because he had imposter syndrome about it, because he thought he wasn't a good enough streamer to apply. And so that told me something very interesting that I'm sure I've thought of before when it came to manifesting for other people. But this, even though this is to a lot of people a small, totally insignificant thing, you don't even know what drops are and why it would matter, and this is just like one game one guy plays or whatever, just this group of people plays, like none of this really matters. But it told me a lot about my whole manifesting process that I forgot. Number one, I daydreamed it, and it was very like, there was an abandonment of self in it. There was a mixture of selfless and selfishness to it, though that doesn't actually apply once you know we're all one. And there was not one scene, there was no affirmations. It was a mixture of scenes, there was no looping, and I really just daydreamed it, did it, and figured it would be done. Now, had it not manifested that afternoon, I might have imagined for it a couple more times, because I have done that, and then it does end up manifesting, but it really was set in motion that one time. I was surprised how fast it was. But the thing that I was reminded of when he said that he didn't see himself as being a good enough streamer to be on that team, but I manifested it for him anyway, is that when it comes to manifesting for other people, it does not matter what they think about themselves, or specifically what you think they think about themselves. That does not matter. It also doesn't matter like your relationship to them. Like if you want to manifest a deeper level of commitment with someone who's told you they don't see themselves as being committed, they don't see themselves getting married again or something like that, literally just ignore that and see them married to you or committed to you. Or if you're doing it for a friend, like if a friend tells you, oh, you know, they really want to be married to this person, but the person told them they don't want to be married, ignore all that shit. See them married and see the other person very happy to be married to your friend. Like literally just do it, especially when it comes to friends who have had a lot of just struggles in whatever regard, you know, whether that's money or relationships or their body or their health or whatever. Literally ignore all of their bullshit when you imagine for them. And I mean, Neville Tech gives this message so many times, and I'm sure it comes up in this lecture that we're going to do today, that you lift them up, okay? You're the one lifting them up. The one way I've held myself back in the past is because the person told me that they had this limit. Like, let's say they told me they didn't have enough focus to keep a steady job, that they had a pattern of getting distracted and sort of foggy-minded at work and getting fired for it. And it happened to them a handful of times. Well, in my mind, I would say, well, then I guess you've got to let go of that first, and I've got to help you learn how to let go of that and see yourself as someone who's focused, and then we can manifest you keeping a steady job. But it's like I'm adding steps. I just need to see them in the new state and not see their blocks, not keep imagining their limitations for them. Like if someone's told you like they really want a certain level of job, like they want to be a manager. Let's just say they want to be a manager at a fairly large company, but they've really only been like a lower level employee for like 20 years. They've been passed over for every promotion. You know, that's what they want, but they just don't know if it's ever going to happen for them. Literally ignore them. Ignore them and all of their bullshit and see them with the manager title on. Like, just ignore all of that stuff. Just ignore their limits. And surprise yourself and surprise them how many interesting leaps you can manifest in other people's lives. So that was ultimately that story. I mean, the main thing that was really cool about it for me was it was fast. It was fast. It was really like, and I've had smaller ones happen fast. Well, that's not true. But that one was just like, what was really nice about the quickness of that is that I didn't anticipate it being that quick. I've had other ones happen quick where there was the intention for it. Where it's like, okay, I want this thing this afternoon. And so when I get it, I'm like, okay, well, that's what I said. I said I wanted it this afternoon. You know, I wasn't saying that for no reason. I wanted it this afternoon. So I got it this afternoon. Great. But this, I thought, this might take some time. And so it was a pleasant surprise to see that, no, it doesn't take any time at all. It doesn't take any time at all. And I do think that every sort of scene involved, every little part of that reverie I fell into before I went to sleep, played a part. It all played a part. And I think especially mentally composing that email on his behalf was probably the most important part, even though that's the only part of what I imagined that I didn't see reflected in the outer world. So I didn't, and it may come to pass that I find this out, but I didn't find out that someone else wrote that email or something like that, you know? But all the other things I imagined, I saw a visual representation of them. I saw the joke, I saw the post in our Discord, I saw his reaction, I saw the chat's reaction, I saw all those other things I imagined. I didn't see the email I composed, and it's weird because I feel like that was kind of the most important part. Because that was me elevating him to a place that he wasn't allowing himself to go to. Anyway, I hope you get something out of that. Let's go straight into today's lecture, especially considering that was a 25-minute rant. Alright, so I have done the selection from the book that has the same title. It was my very first stream was the book Coin of Heaven. I don't think we've done a lecture. We've done a lecture before, so what we're doing it again. And you can listen back, because I still have that first lecture. The whole thing is clipped as a highlight. If you go back at the videos, it should be the first video. If you do it by date, you know, from current to old, and go to the first page, you'll find it at the bottom. And so you can compare. I'm pretty sure the lecture was given as part of like a book tour for the book. And this would be, as we're about to see, the last lecture of that series of talks that he gave. Alright, this being my last Sunday for a year, I wish to leave no doubt in your mind of what I tried to tell you in the last 19 lectures. So I'm going to ask a question which you can silently answer yourself. Have you lived this life of yours in such a way that you desire to live it again? Well, if you haven't, you'd better listen very carefully to what I will say this morning. If you have not already started, for I may tell you, the next life is this life. When the eye is opened, you will see it. That man, unless he awakes and changes the tracks of this life, he walks them forever. So if you have not lived this life in such a way that you really desire to live it again, you start now to interfere with these tracks and laying new tracks. Let me give you just one simple little vision. These are all true visions of the speaker. Lying on my bed, suddenly the eye opened. The inner eye opened. And I saw a man casually dressed in working clothes walking the sidewalks of a major city. As he came to a hole that was open to receive coal, in fact the coal had just been delivered, he dropped something from his hand, and bending down instead of picking up the thing dropped, he picked up huge hunks of coal that were scattered around the hole, and then my vision relaxed. When I reconcentrated the vision, it was on the early part of that scene of the man walking down the sidewalk. He came to the manhole, he dropped, as he had in the previous state. Bending down, he picked up the coal as he had done before. Everything was in detail. And as I saw it for the second time, I said, now that scene hasn't changed one iota. My attention again relaxed. When I reconcentrated it, it was on the early part of the scene. Now I could prophesy for that man. I knew exactly what he would do every moment of time right up to that manhole, that he would drop his package and not pick it up, but pick up the coal. I knew he would look into that manhole and then change his mind, either because someone below saw him pick it up and he didn't want the consequences of his action, or else he had a change of heart. But I knew in detail what the man would do. We are walking tracks, and the tracks are forever, and by the mere curvature of time, your next life is this life. You simply replay it. So if you have not so played it that you are proud of it, you start now and you start the change today. We have given you a system by which you change it. For those who haven't heard why I say you walk tracks, you are standing forever in the presence of an infinite and eternal energy. And from this energy all things proceed, but they proceed according to pattern. Energy is moving in a certain pattern, and you determine the pattern that it takes. For you actually lay down these tracks within you that energy flows over by the use of your inner conversations. This energy, I call it now mind, follows the tracks laid down in a man's own inner talking. So if your inner conversations are not what they should be, I ask you today to start carrying on conversations within yourself from the premises of fulfilled ideals. The man you want to be, the woman you want to be. If you have failed so far to embody it, now you begin to assume that you are that man, that you are that woman, and inwardly carry on conversations with your friends, those that respect you or those you want to respect you, and carry on these conversations from the premises that they see in you, the man. I know it says in the woman, but I got lost track of it. Hold on. Carry on these conversations from the premises that they see in you the man and the woman that you want the world to see, just as though you were. And these words, inner words, which are really the breeding ground of future action, will lay down new tracks, and then the energy, which is always flowing, will flow over these tracks, and the conditions and the circumstances of life will change. If you do not lay new tracks, I will prophesy for you, you will find yourself repeating it, but you will not know you've done it before. This is an interesting thing that I haven't heard Neville talk about directly, because it was actually in the lecture I was cutting up the other night, where when he talks about death, our concept of death, he talks about the person being born again into a younger body. But he doesn't say if they're themselves again or if they're another person or what. I mean, the way I've always conceived of it, even prior to knowing about Neville, is that, God lives infinite lives, infinite times. So the being who I really am, which is the being who you really are, which is the being who anybody really is, that entity, that consciousness lives infinite lives, infinite times, lives all of our lives, infinite times. This is an interesting proposition here, that it's almost like it's an iteration of the same life. Neville has talked about Elohim differently before, where he talks about it as like a sequence of lives, like first you're Kelly, and then you're John, and then you're Mary, and then you're Abe, and then you're I'm running out of names, Donatello. Like each, like you'll die, and then you're the next person, and die and next person, but you're forever creating an individualization. And then once that final person receives the promise and returns to the one creative entity, it's like you iterated but across different lives. And here he's talking about it like there's an iteration within the life. And so it's like I would just be Kelly, 5 million times. Well, it seems like a low number, 50 million times until I'm like, yeah, I got that one right. And then I would be somebody else and do their life 3 billion times until I feel like, boom, yeah, I really nailed that person. It's an interesting proposition. Now, these are kind of things where it's like, it's more fun to, think about and conjecture than it is practical to your daily life. What's practical to your daily life is, how are you thinking about your present and your future and your past? How are you thinking about you and the character that you are and the life that you've designed for yourself through your mind, through your thoughts? Like if you're laying out a future for yourself that's nothing like what you want, today is the day to start changing your mind about all of these things and see that get reflected sooner than you ever expected it could. If I could only take you now into the inner vision with me and show you this room rising, everything rising in detail like a 3-dimensional curtain ascending, but everything is moving up and yet it remains. It is so altogether automatic that it ascends every moment of time. The whole world is ascending. And as it ascends, the world remains the same. It's almost as though not a thing has happened, and so you can't see it. But if the inner eye if the inner eye opens, you see it ascend, and as it leaves off, that which begins is the duplicate, the perfect duplicate of the thing that rose, and it rises in a three-dimensional matter, so that when a man goes over these tracks, he is totally unaware that he has walked them forever. This must have been another vision that he had, sort of showing him how this iterative process of personal reality works. So I bring you a message to make you conscious. Man must awake from the dream where he is simply an automaton. He moves like a machine, then he begins to awake, and when he awakes, then he is not that man at all. He seemingly in the past played for eternity. He awakes into a new being, a new man. Now the new man is a man of new conversations. As told you in Ephesians, put off the former conversations. They belong to the old man that is corrupt, and put on the new man by a transformation of mind. And the new man is identified with completely new words. He speaks only the kind things. He is incapable of any unlovely thought in the world. He is incapable of even listening to the unlovely. For inwardly he speaks only the kind, only the loving things of the world. Then he finds himself awakening a man within that was asleep. He awakens the second man, which is called Christ Jesus in the Bible, which I tell you now is your own wonderful, loving imagination. I'm scrolling up. When imagination wakes, it is incapable of being exercised in any way outside of the loving way. So every time you use your imagination lovingly, you are literally awakening this inner man, and you're mediating God to man. If I think of anyone in a loving way, I'm in contact with that being, and God flows toward him. Now, because this is my last Sunday, I will give you what I gave the class last Friday. Do not see it just as some metaphorical picture. See it as an actual picture. Imagine yourself at the very base of a wonderful waterfall, and that water is flowing beautifully on you. And imagine it's flowing through you, and now from you, and flowing towards someone you think of. I make this statement because it's a true statement. We are now in Eden, but we are asleep, as told you in the 2nd of Genesis. Man went sound asleep when he was placed to dress it and to keep it. To awake, do this. Just imagine yourself, the center through which water radiates, and everyone in this world is rooted in me and ends in me, as I am rooted in and end in God. So I am in God's garden. It's Eden. But in God's garden, every man in the world has a plot, a little garden. In that garden, there are trees that grow. You can see them. If I look at this man now and inwardly look at his plot in my garden, I will see the trees. Some will be called health. Some I call wealth, the tree of dignity, the tree of nobility, the tree of being wanted. They may be withered. They will never really die, but they may be withered. They are in need of water. Just imagine that you are watering that plant, and see in your mind's eye the leaves appear on what formerly was a barren plant. See the fruit appear, and wherever he is in the world, as you water his garden, which really is your own garden, as you water it, he will embody the very qualities that this tree is now beginning to bear and radiate. You name the tree, whatever you name it, that it is, and you name this one, and you name this one if you know he is unwanted, he wants to be wanted. You name it and let the water flow towards it. Imagine it's growing healthily in that garden and see it put out its leaves and see it put out its fruit. Wherever he is in the world, he will begin to be wanted by people in his world. If he is unemployed, it's a tree of employment, and see it radiate its leaves and radiate its fruit. He will be wanted and he will be gainfully employed. I'm going to repeat this too at the end. I'm going to go back and repeat this at the end of the stream because I think this is a really cool little exercise that people could do. Like instead of imagining conversations for people or however else you've been imagining for them to have things, you could do this. I tell you, this is not just an idle statement. Everyone here can do it, and everyone should do it. And whenever you water the tree in anyone's garden, at the same time, you are watering your own garden in the eternal one of God. For I am the vine, and ye are the branches. Every man can say the same thing. So as you rise here, there are 2,600 of you. There's a lot of people attending. You individually are the central vine of God's garden, and everyone in your world is a branch in that vine. So when I, as a central vine, water a branch in my garden, at that same moment I am being watered, and my garden is being watered in your wonderful garden. I don't have to water my own. Just by taking care of the many gardens in God's Eden, I take care of my own garden, that is in the vine of everyone in the world. You try it, and you can bless everyone in the world, and then eventually the eye opens, the ear opens, the inner man awakes, and you see the most glorious world, which is always here to be seen, only we in our sleep had shut it out. We shut the whole wonderful golden world out by going to sleep and becoming an automaton. But take me seriously, for your next life is this life. You make this life what you want to make it, because if you don't, you will find yourself automatically, and you won't even know it. Because as a sleeping person, you don't know you are walking the same track. But if I can only take you within me and let you see with the eye of the inner eye and watch these automatons in the world, sleeping people, yes, the eye is open and they seem to be awake, but they're really sound asleep, for they're repeating the same thing. Now become conscious. As you become conscious, you enter the most glorious circle of awakened humanity. I call it the conscious circle of humanity, or as my old teacher used to call it, the brothers. I didn't know that about Abdullah. He's talking about Abdullah here. I didn't know that he called that the brothers, or that there was even a separation. It simply means the awakened man. And when he awakes, they're all glorious beings. Well, he's talking about Elohim here. They're all glorious beings, for they are all the image of the Divine One. So try it. Try it today with the art of revision. At the end of this day, review today. If some unlovely thing in the day don't allow it, you rewrite it. Take that same scene and rewrite it, and having rewritten it, replay it. In your imagination, you imagine the action to be unfolding, and you replay everything in the world as you replay it, as you ought to have played it the first time you've changed it. And the moment is never receding as people think. The moment is advancing. Now this may seem an insane statement to tell you, that yesterday is today's future. It seems insane. You think it's not. It's past. It's also quite a conundrum of a statement. Yesterday is today's future. It seems insane. You think it's not. It's past. But by the curvature of time you will discover, but you will not know it, because you will be asleep and you begin to awaken, and you will come upon what is yesteryear in your future. For the moment is never receding, it is always advancing into the future to confront us. And so if you don't change it, you will simply find yourself repeating over and over what, luckily in God's infinite mercy, that sleep shuts out the memory of it. So you're doing it and you think you're doing it for the first time. But I ask you to awake, for the purpose of this platform is to awaken everyone who comes here, that we may all enter this brotherhood of awakened humanity. Now we are told there were 2 gifts given to man at birth. It doesn't mean this little birth when I left my mother's womb, but when I left the womb of my father, that is the grand womb, the womb of creation, when, before the world was, he created me and made me perfect and set me in this world for a purpose, educative purpose, but he gave me 2 gifts. He gave me his own mind, and he gave me the gift of speech, the very thing he used to create a world. So he spoke the world into being, and then gave me the gift by which he spoke the world into being. So he gave me mind and speech. If I use the gift wisely and do it rightly, I will be led into the realization, into the fulfillment of my every desire. Not one is beyond my ability to realize. If I continually use it wisely when I quit the body, as the world calls a man dead, When I leave this into another dimension, by the wise use of the same two gifts, I will be brought into the company of the blessed if I awake. If I don't use it wisely, I continue my circle of sleep. If I use it wisely, I will break the circle of recurrence and rise beyond it into eternity. If I don't, I continue on the curved line of time and repeat it over and over until someday I awake, for I am destined to be conformed to the image of his Son. So I have no doubt that everyone will awake, but why not start the awakening process now? And you start it by practicing the art of revision. You try it, don't treat it idly. I asked you and I beg you to read and read over and over again the chapter, The Pruning Shears of the Revision, and take it day after day, and never let the sun descend upon your wrath. Any vexation or any problem of the day, resolve it before you sleep, and carry that resolved picture into sleep, and you will find the inner man awakening. But you try it with your friends, and that you are the grand waterfall. The Bible speaks of water. The mystic knows it does not mean water, it means truth. And so when I see anyone in my mind's eye and set him free, I am giving him the only truth that will set him free. So if I water his plant, imagine the water is really going to it, and I see the leaves begin to appear, and that man becoming free. He becomes healthy, he becomes secure, he becomes loved. Then those trees are growing beautifully in my garden. And so as I do that, not only will he benefit from my watering his plant, but I will benefit. I will begin to awaken. So I ask everyone here to really try it. Now I know today the title was The Coin of Heaven, but this being the last day, I thought I would simply give a sort of quick summary of what I've tried to tell you. For the purpose behind the 19 lectures was to stimulate you to interfere with your time track, that you may do something about it, for the passage of time cannot change it. If you wait, thinking there is going to be some change beyond the grave, I tell you, you will wait in vain. There is no transforming power beyond the grave. All transforming power is in man now, to interfere with his time track, and you interfere with it by simply changing one moment in the course of a day, not accepting it as final, no matter how factual the day. You know you did have that experience. Don't allow the day to descend upon it and say, well, I did have it. Go back to that moment in time, rewrite it, replay it in the revised version, and do it over and over in your imagination until that takes on the tones of reality. As it takes on the tones of reality, you have changed your future. Take another incident and change it, and keep on changing all the little episodes, all the little experiences, and make them conform to a more idealistic experience and relive it. Neville's touching on something that I've thought about before. Keep on changing all the little episodes, all the little experiences, like when some like big thing happens in your day, something that you're actually going to, like if something big happened to you, something that you're actually going to remember in a couple months today, you think, well, that's really the only thing I need to revise from today. But all those little things add up. Like, I mean, all the times, like if you do have a commute in the morning, like you're frustrated, or in a morning commute, or all of like just junk email you get that you have to delete out of your mailbox every day, or like say there's someone you a coworker or a family member or friend that you talk to a lot that's just always just down, or all of those things add up. They all add up, and they all create that overall palette of your life, that overall experience of your life. So it's like editing those and like adding in like nice little flourishes, like just that you were in a really good mood in the morning, or that you heard a favorite song, or that somebody was especially nice to you, someone gave you a little extra treat, or like you got a call from someone you've been wanting to talk to for a while. Like just adding in all those little things, it just sort of brings up the quality of your life. Because like you could have all the big things that you want that you think you don't have right now or whatever, and still kind of have a crappy life. Like, still have a lot of days where you just, your mood is down, like things just don't really go the way you want them to, even though you have like the bigger things you want in your life. Just like your day-to-day experience is really not very great, and it's simply because you haven't weeded, you haven't started weeding all those little things out and correcting all those little things. And I think for someone who's like brand new to conscious manifesting, if you starting with those first and building confidence that way, and seeing how quickly all those little things improve and how quickly you manifest all these little things, it's going to be easier to have faith in the tree you've planted that's only now like a little sprout. You're going to have way more faith that, yes, that's going to be an oak tree one day, once you've gotten rid of all these little weeds and seen some nice flowers popping up here and there. Okay, if anyone is here for the first time, you might think, well, that's fooling yourself, but you try it. Try it and see if the inner man will not awaken. And when he awakens, you will see a world that is automatic. You will see a world that's a machine, and the whole vast world playing their parts that they've played forever, and will continue to play on the curvature of time forever, until he snaps out of it and rises from the dead. As you are told, awake, you that sleep, and rise from the dead. The state called sleep now is likened unto death, where the son has died. So we are told the second son, the prodigal, that when he returned from that cycle and he was met, the father said, he that was lost is found, and he that was dead is alive again. So this state of lostness is likened unto death, and the only purpose now is to rise, not to amass a fortune, although you are entitled to it, not to become famous, although you are entitled to it, but simply to awake from the state of sleep. And I know of no other way. You need to manifest better, internet. Thanks for dropping in, Cyber King. Yeah, I mean, I've always got the VODs on here, so you can always listen back to them. Well, they stay up for 60 days, and then they're gonna get. I'm slowly putting everything up on YouTube, so you'll be able to get stuff through the YouTube site there too. But yeah, I know how that can be. And thanks for dropping in, saying hi. And I know of no other way. Okay, let me back up a little bit. So this state of lostness is likened unto death, and the only purpose now is to rise, not to amass a fortune, although you are entitled to it, not to become famous, although you are entitled to it, but simply to awake from the state of sleep. And I know of no other way to awaken a man unless I can show him how mechanical he is. And if you will take and practice seriously the art of revision, the eye will open and you will have the experiences the speaker spoke of. You too, lying on your bed, will find the eye peering into a city that may be 2,000 miles away. And there you will more clearly than I see you now, and you will watch the tracks of a man, and then disinterest, and then all of a sudden you decide once more to be interested, and you don't have a memory image of the man, you see the whole thing all over again. You see the man walk the same sidewalk, he does everything he did a moment before, then take it back again. The track is laid forever, and he will walk it forever until he awakes. If someone ends up having this dream, try to remember this lecture. So I ask everyone here to take me seriously. If this seems a bit too mystical for you, I don't apologize. It's the only thing I can give you. For as I begin to awake, I've got to give you the food on which my Father feeds me. He feeds me on new ideas. He changes my values. He changes all my meanings in the world. I don't have the same meaning I had last year. I don't have the same values I had last year. For the motives I had last year might have been along a different line. But then all of a sudden things change, and you can't place value where formerly you placed it. You can't place it on wealth. You can't place it on names. You can't place it on recognition. And your values change, and then you begin to inwardly see a new, wonderful world. So I can tell you, let me scroll it up. So I tell you, this garden of which I speak is a true garden. This you call the world. Don't believe for one moment you are in exile. This wonderful, visible, objective world of ours is not a place of exile. It's the living garment of my Father. It really is his living garment, but it needs interpreters. Individual men come as they begin to awaken, and they will interpret for you this strange discordant harmony. For to you, if I tell you everything in your world is related by affinity to your own mental activity, you can't see it, and so you can't quite see this discord as related to you. If you didn't think that way that you know of, you weren't conscious of it. If you were conscious of the activity within you, you would see everything related to yourself, your own being. Kind of why this is like making me have this reaction is part of waking up is starting to notice all these little things. And, you know, sometimes it's a little bit of a face palm, like, oh my God, why did I do that? I mean, you know, a lot of times it is really wonderful things like the manifestation I talked about at the top of the, before I got into lecture today. But, you know, sometimes you're just like, why, I remember doing that. Why did I do that? Like there was an actual manifestation of that too, where one day my neighbor was over here, and the way my computers multiple work is that 3 instances, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 instances of Skype ring all at once. And this happened, and my neighbor is like, why did you do this to yourself? And I just said, well, why did I do any of this to myself? Like, really? Why did I do any of this to myself? Like, come on, man. If I can't explain that, I definitely can't explain this Skype nonsense to you. But yeah, once you start waking up and seeing, like, oh, I did that. Like, once you're more awake about it, you're more conscious about it, you're just naturally going to be a little bit more careful about your thoughts. But then kind of what has been happening to me lately, where it's like, well, okay, if that was like a not great thought and it manifests, that's okay. Because for the most part now, I know how to withdraw my attention and replace it. And that's what we're really meant to be learning to do. Like that's, that is what revision is. That is the gift that we have been given, that we can remove things from the exterior world if we want and replace them with something better. Like that's what you're really honing and practicing anyway. So it's like if you make a mistake and it does manifest, like, so what? You can always replace it. Like you can always let that die out and revise it and replace it with something else. It's like it's not such a big deal. All right, let me find where we were at. If you were conscious of the activity within you, you would see everything related to yourself, your own being. What you do not now see, you will still know it is still related. So interpreters come, because the interpreter, as he begins to awake, he knows this wonderful world has a voice for him that speaks of things beyond the veil. Speaks of things behind the veil of your own mind. For behind your face right now, there's an activity of your own imagination. And that activity, could you see it, you would see it projected as the conditions and circumstances of your life. Not one thing is out of order. Change the activity, and you change the world in which you live. And you can change that activity by the changing of your inner speech. For speech mirrors your mind, and your mind mirrors God. If you don't change the speech, you haven't changed the activity. And if you don't change the activity, you can't change the conditions of life. Oh, hey, Layla, how's it going? For they only come bearing witness of this inner action of your mind. So you want to change. I hope you do. But if you can now reflect upon your life, be it 10 years or be it 60 years, and you can't say within yourself, I would want to live this again if I had that freedom of choice, then you better start right now changing it. Because I make you a prophecy, I make you a promise, your next life is this life. So if you cannot now, that's great. I'm having a pretty good day too. By the way, I'll say this on stream. I missed your call earlier because I was running errands, but after the stream, if you want to chat privately, we definitely can. And by the way, I am going to put this pressure on you stream. You should come on the stream sometime. I think people would enjoy it. Okay. If you cannot now in reflection say, I desire to live it again, then start today to lay down new tracks. Because if you don't, you're going to live it again. And living it again, you won't even know you're living it again. It is so altogether automatic. It's so effortless as you walk the tracks, for you stand in the presence of energy, and you can't stop walking. You've laid them, and you will walk them. And the curvature of time will bring you back and back, forever and forever, until you break it, and you begin to awaken. And when you awaken, you enter a circle of awakened humanity. And I'll tell you now, and I'll tell you, you know them more intimately than anyone you know now in the state of sleep. There is not a person on earth that you know as intimately as those who have awakened when you awake. When you go into their presence and you mingle with them, you have become one. You do not lose your identity. In fact, you tend ever toward greater and greater individualization. This is the refrain that comes up in a lot of Neville lectures I was talking about earlier, where when he tries to sort of explain Elohim and sort of his overarching understanding of reality, this particular statement comes up again and again. You tend ever toward greater and greater individualization. And then I'm sure he's going to continue here, and yet you're still one entity. So it's the many who are one. It's the consciousness that fragments and reunites, but it never is really separate. It's still interacting with its total self. It just believes itself to be constrained within an individual, but it believes itself to be constrained within billions of individuals and all these other entities, that are existent all at once. It thinks it's all these different things, but it's still the one thing. Learning how to create in a new and better way. You never become absorbed and lose your identity, but as you awaken to the being that you always were, but you had forgotten it and went sound asleep. There is a beauty in the inner man that the outer has never touched, never scarred, so as you awaken, and they will be there to meet you because they are awaiting eagerly for the breaking of the circle of recurrence. So you try it. We have told you many things this year, many things that seem too mystical. But I warned you when I took it 4 Sundays ago, this year I would give you the end of a golden string. And I called you to roll it into a ball. And if you did, it would lead you in at heaven's gate, built in Jerusalem's wall. Well, I have given you that string, but I cannot roll it into a ball for you. I promise you I will water your garden, but it won't awaken you. It will awaken you only to lovelier things in a way, but it will not really break the circle for you. So I offer you now this day again the end of the golden string, but I call upon you to wind it and roll it into a ball by the daily application of the principle of revision, by daily watching your interactions and see if they correspond to the actions you desire to perform in the outer world. And I think this is pretty simply stated, that it's like, okay, so if you know someone who's really great at manifesting for other people, they could certainly manifest something for you, and they could manifest a lot of things for you that you really want. But you're only going to really change your life and change your experience of reality by consciously imagining for yourself. And here Neville specifically advises daily revision and revising your daily experiences, but also, revising things as they come to mind. What I have found to be the most helpful, though, is instead of the end, because it's just easier to organize, like mentally, instead of the end of day review as things happen. And it's like, if I forgot or if I just was lazy mentally and didn't do it then I'll do it at the end of the day, or sometimes do it the next day. But like the whole day review, when I was trying that, it was too much. And it took like 2 hours to do it. And it was just like, it was exhausting. Now maybe that's something in the future will get easier for me, but it's like, what I do now, I just revise on the spot all the time and assume that that's all I need to do. So unless the thing like reverberates again, and then I'll maybe do it a little deeper or do it a couple more times. But it's like I'll just on the spot change my thoughts about it, maybe visualize it going differently, and then that's it. And I don't redo it again at the end of the day. And it's just easier that way. Though I do tend to know, okay, I didn't revise that today. And it'll come up at the end of the day, oh, I really need to do something about that. It's like, the being who you really are doesn't forget. So it's almost like I put these on a to-do list. And it's one of the few to-do lists I actually tend to every day, where it comes up again at the end of the day and I take care of it, type of deal. I found that much better than the full day review. Though I did try the full day review a couple days ago, the problem I had is about halfway through, I started having a lot of fun with one scene, and then from there I jumped into some of my favorite scenes, and I forgot to do the rest of the day. But yeah, my point was revising as things happen is better and easier. Watch your conversations carefully. Are they from premises of fulfilled ideas? If they're not, go back and make them actually correspond to the ideal you want to embody in this world. Start, that is, winding it into a ball, and it will lead you in at heaven's gate built in Jerusalem's wall. I have no doubt in my mind, for I know from experience, that's how I opened up that wall. I opened it up by application. So I warned you every time I have taken the platform that the knowledge you have now is of no avail unless it's applied. A little knowledge, if carried out in action, is more profitable than much knowledge which you neglect to carry out in action. If you had all the knowledge in the world and you didn't put it into practice, you wouldn't awaken. Now here this morning, everyone has heard it. You take it today and start this day revising. And watch the circle begin to snap. Watch the eye begin to open. And I tell you, there isn't a gift on earth, there isn't a possession in the world that you would want more than the opening of the eye when the eye opens. That's why I say your values change. The meaning of life changes. For you wouldn't sell the eye that opens for all the wealth of the world. You wouldn't exchange it for any recognition in the world now conferred upon the so-called great. You see the so-called great all equally sound asleep, playing their parts, walking curved lines. And then you snap it and move into a wonderful world of awakened humanity, and there you see these glorified beings, but really glorified beings, who preceded you in the conscious circle of humanity. And now my time is up. I don't know, he didn't die for another 20 years, so he either timed them or he had very strict constraints when he rented a lot of these places, wherever this particular lecture took place. Or at least let's shoot us over to the chat room. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I'm scrolling up right now to find it, is when we shift over to the outro, I will kind of organize a little quick guided meditation for today, because I think that's a cool idea to imagine for someone else. This lecture was actually way less about, number one, he didn't mention what the wife told him. And I'm kind of glad, because we've already done that 4 times. But one day his wife was taking a nap and she woke up, and she was the one who the Coin of Heaven title is inspired from her experience. In her nap, she was told by a booming male voice, like a stereotypical God voice, stop wasting your thoughts. You must invest them. And so she went to the dictionary and looked up the word invest. And that's where Neville got the Coin of Heaven concept from. But there might be a couple Bible verses with the Coin of Heaven. I might have actually directly done the psalm that it references. But the idea is that, with every thought you are creating your world. You're always creating your experience of reality and other people's experience of reality. So whenever you're ruminating about how things didn't go well for you, or how this thing you want still hasn't happened, or how there's so many things you feel like you need to do, or you're replaying a conversation you had with someone that day where things aren't going great for them either, the more time you spend mentally on that, it's literally just like throwing money away. It's just like you have a ton of money and you're just like setting piles of it on fire, when you could instead like have an empire in less than 5 years if you would just put that money into the proper investment vehicles. You're doing that with your thoughts all the time. And so every thought should be a well invested one. If you don't want to experience this at some point in the future, you shouldn't be thinking about it right now. And that certainly applies to everything, not just like the big things you want to manifest, but things that you don't even think are part of your personal life, like the news. Like the more time you spend thinking about something you read in the news today that's really awful, the more you're going to perpetuate coming across really awful things in the exterior world. Cyber King, if you haven't, I know you've read all the lectures, but like, if you haven't reviewed them recently, we did the Coin of Heaven, the original. So the one that, if you go on the site, is it under? No, it's probably on YouTube. Let me go on YouTube and I'll find it, because like the very first stream I did was the Coin of Heaven chapter, and that's the one where he actually tells the story of the wife. It also came up on another, 2 or 3 other lectures, where he talked about the wife's experience uncovering this, like having this exact phrase told to her to invest her thoughts. Let me pull it up, because I'll just post it in the chat. Boosh, here it is. It's definitely come up in like 2 or 3 other lectures that I've done so far. It's probably in order your conversations are right. I mean, it's the simplest instruction of all time. But it's one of these things where if we're not cognizant every day, if we're not really letting ourselves stay awake, your mind will just slip. Like it will just slip and dwell on stuff that is totally not what you want to experience. But it's like the more, like Neville talked about in this lecture we just did, where the more you recognize the relationship between your thoughts and the exterior world, you just instantly become more careful about these things, and you become much more directional and much more devoted to the version of your life that is far and away better than what you allowed yourself in the past. And another one, geez, I don't think it's up anywhere right now, but you can read the lecture anywhere. Changing the Feeling of I is one of my favorite Neville lectures. And in it, he talks about a man who it took him 3 years, as far as Neville knew, someone who came to him and said that he felt he couldn't get ahead of business because he's being discriminated against because he was black. Like that's what he felt was going on in his life, and that was his experience. And Neville basically told him there's nothing wrong with who you are. Like let go of that story of being discriminated against. Move into this version of yourself that is successful, that is wanted, that people want to do business with you, that people are happy to do business with you. And it took him 3 years to rearrange his mind in this way, but the end of the 3 years was like he had his own building, his own business, he was making a ton of money. Like it was a really interesting experience that one of Neville's students had, and this was in like, I forget the year of the lecture. I think it might have been 61 or something like that. It was in a time where that was an impressive thing, even in New York City, for an African American person to accomplish. Related to that too, Manifest 1922, who was on, Layla. That what's so funny is that lecture is specifically one I told Layla to read for like 6 months. And then I think she encountered it some other way and then ended up reading it and told me to read it. I was like, I've been telling you to read that lecture for like 6 months. I've been telling you to read that lecture. But yeah, it is one of my favorites. And And what I like about it is that, Neville was encouraging. It's like, no matter how long it takes, like, I don't know if it's going to take you 3 weeks or 3 years, but it takes as long as it takes because you're changing your own mind. If you've had this long pattern of thinking really crappy thoughts about yourself and you've really limited yourself, you've really degraded yourself, it's a transition. Like, it is a change. It is a major change, and you're changing all of your thoughts. Like, if you're in this really awful state, it has all these really awful thoughts attached to it. It's a lot to come out of that. It's not always going to happen in a day. Like, there is an unfolding. Some of these things can really surprise you. I manifested having faith in the law very quickly. I knew it worked right away because of the things I tested, but I specifically did a scene about having faith, about having full faith in the law. And the unfolding for that took about 2.5 months. The unfolding was totally different than what I expected it to be. However, that's still pretty fast. As far as I know, there are people who have been studying and applying the law for years who don't have the degree of faith that I manifested only that amount of time. And all I did was imagine a conversation with a friend. I wrote a line of dialogue for him, a line of dialogue for me. I looped the scene like 5 or 6 times, once while I was sitting exactly here, another time or two while I was in the pool. And then the unfolding was totally different than I thought it would be. But then the scene, very close to the scene, not the exact line for me, but the exact line for him, manifested in, like, I wrote the scene in like beginning of June, and the scene manifested in mid-August. And that's coming up on 2 years ago that happened for me. But what's interesting is, even though once you have like full faith in the law, your mind is still going to play tricks on you when it comes to certain manifestations. And a lot of that is really limited by the self concept. And that's why changing the feeling of I is so, so important. And let me check up on the chat. Yeah, you guys get it. Okay, so let me find where this segment is. So I recommended a similar. Well, Neville, Layla, you joined a little late, so you didn't see it, but like, basically Neville has an imaginal scene suggestion for everybody, where instead of having an imaginal conversation about a friend or with a friend, when it comes to manifesting something that they want, instead to picture yourself. Let me pull it. I'll pull it up. I'll read it here, then I'm gonna read it again over the closing segment. Imagine yourself at the very base of a wonderful waterfall, and that water is flowing beautifully on you, and you imagine it's flowing through you, and now from you, flowing towards someone you think of. Imagine yourself the center through which water radiates, and everyone in this world is rooted in you and ends in you as you are rooted and end in God. In that garden, there are trees that grow. You can see them. I look at this man now, and he has a plot, and you have a plot. And you see some of his trees in his garden. Like, he has a health tree. He has an employment tree. He has a relationship tree. And some of them are kind of fucked up. like let's say his employment tree, let's say there's a guy who hasn't had, really never had a decent job, but hasn't had regular employment for like 5 years. He's just kind of gone gig to gig. And so there's a tree there, but it's like the leaves are falling off. Like it's really screwed up and twisted looking, like might have termites on it. And so you would imagine this giant waterfall that's flowing through you and through your center, and like direct it to his tree and see it come alive and light up and turn green. Or if you have a friend who really wants a relationship, they've been apart from someone they really want to be with for a long amount of time, what you could do is you could put them in a garden together and have a tree that symbolizes their relationship. And let's say like the people are facing away from each other. Like direct the water towards their tree, light it up, have it blossom, have it bloom, have the two people turn around and kiss. It's a really cool thing to do, and I like it because it's totally visual. The very similar one to this is the absolutist method, which has always manifested some pretty cool things for me. So in the absolutist method, you think of the most divine. You think of aspects of God, and you think of them in their pure divine form. So you would think of something like freedom, beauty, love, joy, success, expansion, abundance, these things. And you would just feel into how incredible those things are. And like the purest form of freedom that you could feel right now. And you do this in a meditative state. And then you would take that and then apply it to certain people. So let's say you have someone who is they're in poor health. You would think of just like radiant health, strength, like just joy. You would feel into those things and how wonderful they are. And you might assign a sort of image to it. Like maybe there's like some powerful animal you'd affiliate with it, or just like a beautiful bright day where you have a lot of energy. And then you would take that and just boom, dump it on your friend who's been sick for like a year. And see them light up and come alive with it. And just like be totally affiliated with this divine aspect of God. This is very similar, but it's got this visual aspect of the garden and of you watering another person's garden, which I think is cool. And it's a great workaround where if you're not sure on the details of the scene that you should do for this person, you can just, water their employment tree, water their relationship tree, water their health tree. Just have them stand next to that tree, write the name on it in your mind, and send it all this glorious life-giving water. I think it's pretty cool. The termites in the tree are the worst. Yeah, that's true. That's true, man. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. I'll be doing one on Thursday. What I think I'll do Thursday, if I don't have a Walter Lanyon one ready for Thursday, we will do another one. It's just kind of whatever I want to pick that day. But I do want to do some Walter Lanyon because I just want to have a little break. On Saturday, hopefully, we'll be having Manifest 1922 back. If not her, maybe someone else, maybe Layla, because I'd like to have another little chat segment on Saturday. What I also will probably start doing for Saturdays is the 5 lessons. So we're going to go through it in little pieces at the time. For this Saturday, being that it's before Easter on Sunday, I'll be picking a lecture that's very relevant to the resurrection and doing that either before, like as a separate stream, or I'll do like half on Thursday, half on Saturday, something like that. But yeah, next stream will be on Thursday, 6 p.m., maybe a little bit later, maybe like 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Today, though, stick around during the outro because I'm going to... Give me a second to come up with it. Give me like a minute to think about it. But then I'll do like a little guided meditation over the outro song, leading you guys through a visual depiction of this so that you can imagine watering someone's garden in your life that needs it right now. All right, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you all again next time. Peace. wherever you are, whatever you're doing, take a minute for yourself. Sit down somewhere comfortable, or if you're doing some other activity, let's take time for some deep breaths at the top. Now we are going to be visualizing, so if you're not great at doing that with your eyes open, and you're doing something that requires your visual attention, maybe save this for later. But for the most part, you should be able to visualize when your eyes are open. Or if you're at home and you can close your eyes and take part, here we go. Alright, so let's do a couple of deep breaths first. So let's breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Hold that. And then release it out. 1, 2, 3. In. And out. In. And out. With each deep breath, you can feel yourself go deeper, falling deeper into who you really are. Just focus on your breath. Right now, there's only you. Only you and your closed eyes, or whatever object you've chosen to focus on. There's nothing else in the world, just your breath and your consciousness. And you start to feel something very interesting on your face, a nice little spray of water. Not quite cool, not quite hot. And you hear a rush, a deep rush. Not like a scary roar, but just like a soothing, yet loud rush. And you can see there's actually a giant waterfall in front of you. You can't even see the top of it. If you try to look up, you can't even see it. And so all this water that's spraying onto your face is from this huge waterfall. It's almost got this like golden hue to it. It's blue water, but it has this like gold tint. And you know that this water has a special ability. This water can recreate and re-energize absolutely anything it touches. And what you find really interesting about it is that the water is drawn right towards your heart. It's like you have a superpower now, because this water goes boom right to your heart, and then you can direct it anywhere you want. So as you turn around from this waterfall, you notice you're in a giant garden. Huge garden. Every kind of tree imaginable. And so you walk a little bit and notice that the water is still with you. It's always following you, going straight to your heart, and then you can direct it just magically wherever you want it to go. And so you walk a little bit in the garden and you come across your friend. And this person, they're happy in this moment, but you know there's something that they need. And so you walk around with them and you check out all the plants that they've been tending to, the trees that they've claimed as their own, the things that they're really excited to see blossom and bloom, and the things that they've kind of let fall by the wayside. Now you look over to one particular tree that you know your friend cares a lot about. This is really their favorite tree, but it's not in the best condition. It is a little bit withered, it is a little bit mottled. It could definitely use some fixing up, some rejuvenation. So in this moment, let's take that magical water that you have and boom, push it right onto their tree. See the tree light up and come alive. All the leaves, boom, go instantly green. Any gnarled branches just fix themselves. You see birds come and land on it because they're like, this place is it. This is the vibe. This is where we want to be. If it's a tree that would bear fruit, it's like, boom, the fruit just pop up right away and just drop on the ground because it's so heavy with fruit. If it's a tree that flowers, it just explodes and blooms. And your friend is so happy. This is their favorite tree. You have done this for them. All right, I'm sure it felt really great to give that gift to somebody else. So what you can do now is continue walking around this garden. I'm sure your friend has a couple other trees. It's not hard to water them. You saw how easy that is. So just water all their other plants and trees right now, and then walk around. See who else you run into. See where you're keeping your favorite plants. Now this is all your garden, but you have a section that you've made yours, right? So you can visit that too. Water what's there as well. Like I said, you can try that one where if there's two people you know want to be together who have been separated for a bit, go find where they are. Have them in the same place in the garden. Put a nice, beautiful tree behind them that's just kind of withered right now, and send energy to that, like light that up with this wonderful waterfall. Have that come alive, have that come and bloom, and have them turn around and kiss. Spend some time in this garden. Getting to know where all your favorite people, where they are, what their favorite trees are, water everything, find the flowers you really like that symbolize different things for the people you care most about, rip all those weeds out, spread all this like wonderful magical water all over it, see it bloom, pop, see the colors become so vivid, they're beyond anything you've ever seen in this world. This is your garden. This is your time to really enjoy Eden in a way that you've never experienced it before.
New York City. Are seated in this room and we think we are here and completely this. And what his dream signifies, we will not take to heart. And yet you're the animating power of the universe. The whole vast world is moving around you because you're identified with the present state. Well, the thing he began to recall was this. I found myself in dream, but not knowing that it was a dream. I found myself on a crowded subway train in New York City. I was talking to my friend David, but the train was literally crowded to the gunnels. I heard the voice of the conductor saying, "Please, do not press against the doors, they may spring." But the people couldn't help it. But in spite of the crowd, I could see them individually, distinctly. And the ladies were more beautiful than each other. I mean, they're all beautiful and beautifully gowned. And I turned to my friend David. I said, "David, how can I believe, how can you believe, that all that we behold, though it appears without, it is within, in our imagination. And this whole vast world is simply a shadow? How can these lovely ladies be in me? And the train? And the train was as long as the station allowed." Well, he agreed you couldn't possibly, on this level, accept it. Then the train stopped and we got off. Walked up the stairs to the plaza. Then he said to me, "You're going via the post office, aren't you?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do me a favor and post these letters for me." I took the letters and said, "Are they properly stamped and addressed?" And I casually, not because I was curious who he's writing, just to see that they were properly stamped, I waved goodbye to him and turned in the direction of the post office, and he went the opposite direction. And I found myself waking. Were they not in me? So what conclusion can I reach? Objectivity and subjectivity are wholly determined for the individual by the level on which his consciousness is focused. On reflection, it's subjective. When I was actually having the experience, it wasn't subjective, it was objective. Only when I woke and reflected upon the experience did I refer to it as a subjective experience. This is now objective. An hour from now, if you think of this room and the meeting, to you it will be a subjective experience, a memory image. So I say everything is truly within. Now you can test it. You take a dream, a daydream, of something you want for yourself or something you want for another. And you represent to yourself a scene which, if true, implies the fulfillment of that dream. You like to do this, that, and the other. And so you construct a scene, any kind of a scene, implying the fulfillment of your desire. And then to the degree that you are self-persuaded of the reality of that imaginal act, it will become fact in your world. I could tell you unnumbered stories to support that claim. It's not theory of me anymore. This is fact, based upon experience. So when we are told in the book of Luke, the kingdom of God is within you, you can take it literally. These garments that you and I wear are parts of the eternal structure of the universe. You are wearing the garment as an act to wear as a costume. You are not the garment you wear. You're doing this for a purpose, a heavenly purpose, but you are not these garments. You are that being that my friend discovered, who sees it from above. And to see this universe from above is so completely unlike what it appears to be seen from this angle. It's not this way at all. But you come down into this world of death for a purpose. Now, Blake made this observation, and he claims he did not write it from his conscious reasoning mind, that the words were dictated by the Spirit of love. Well, God is love. Therefore, if the Spirit of love dictated the words of Jerusalem, then it's God dictating it. And in this he said, those in great eternity who contemplate on love, or rather contemplate on death, said this: what seems to be is, to those to whom it seems to be, even of torments, despair, and eternal death. But divine mercy steps beyond and redeems man in the body of Jesus. Now that's something that man can't grasp on this level. But I tell you, it is true. To stand in the presence of the risen Christ and commune with him face to face and voice to voice, then to have love, his infinite love, embrace you. And as he embraces you, you fuse with him without loss of identity. No change in your identity, and yet you're one with the body of Christ. And then he sends you. And he can't save you without himself, because you're one with him. There's no divorcement, no separation from that moment on. So when he makes the statement, divine mercy steps beyond and redeems man in the body of Christ. So in my last little pamphlet, I made this statement, and I mean it from experience, that you and I are resurrected one by one to unite into a single man who is God. So here is a reflection he saw in his dream, a man prone, containing infinity, and the deadest thing he'd ever seen. God places a limitation and then takes upon himself that limitation and reaches in this act the very limit of contraction, that he may then expand beyond what he was. He takes upon himself the limit of opacity and then begins to expand, and there's no limit to translucence, to transparency. This is the world called the world of death. But while we're in it, and we ourselves are animating it, we can take any state we desire. There are infinite number of states. You can be in a poor state or a wealthy state. You're no better off as far as the height goes because one is poor and one is wealthy. Not from a spiritual point of view. But while you're in the world of Caesar, why not be comfortable? Why not take a state that cushions and comforts? And so you can take a state of affluence, if you know what it would be like, were you affluent. Assume that you are, and see the world as you would see it were it true. And then, I would say, accept it. Believe in the reality of that unseen, imaginal act. And if you do, it will come to pass.